What's the kind of thing you're missing most these days?
I think just like I love training in our big squad, in our group, and I'm definitely missing training with the group at the moment, because it's always savage crack to jump in with the lads. Now, in fairness, I'm living with one of my training partners, Ben, and my girlfriend Kelly as well, who's an athlete, and Kieran Elliott as well. So there's 4 of us are kind of training away. So there is that group element there, but I love going down off the track, even if it's, especially at this time of year when it's starting to get sunny, and having the crack with the music going and having a bit of banter that way. So I am definitely missing that side of things, and just the social side of the general sort of social side of life as well. I'm missing, but there's bigger things at bay at the moment, I suppose.
Have you been moody? That was the question.
Yeah. No, I have. Definitely, like some days I'm 100% happy to come in here to the sitting room, train away, and then some days I'm just barely even want to get out of bed for the day, and just very lazy, unmotivated, kind of lethargic, and just not in great humor. But I think that like trying to keep on top of training is definitely, like doing some sort of training every day is definitely what's helping keep that kind of those endorphins, the good endorphins, flowing for me anyway. So I always find that when I'm on my break, I'm definitely more susceptible to being more sad and upset than when I am if I'm in full-on training. So I was just trying to regulate that and keep it normal and keep those mood swings away.
Have you?
In general, I try not to be too moody.
Yeah. Have you baked any banana bread yet?
What is the obsession with banana bread? No, I haven't. I really do not like bananas. I have a weird hatred of them. The smell and everything is quite strong for me. So no banana bread anyway.
Good to hear someone hasn't. Like Leo Varadkar basically in his address there to the nation mentions that outdoor exercise will start being permitted in some degrees, small groups in the coming month or so. And like over in Norway, the Bislett Games are putting on a meet where Karsten Warholm is running a 300-meter hurdles. I think it's a time trial. In Czech Republic, Maslak and other athletes are kind of going to be running races, running their race, leaving the track. There's going to be no crowds, that sort of thing. Would you like something like that to happen in Ireland, or would something like that just mean almost nothing to you if there were no crowds there?
I think it would just be very hollow. I think it's a fantastic idea, and I saw that as well, that Lavillenie, Duplantis, and is it Kendricks are all going to be competing against each other from their back gardens, basically. I think that's a fantastic idea to keep the sport rolling, and it's great. It's a great idea to, like, kudos to Bislett Games. Like, they were really thinking outside of the box there rather than just cancelling. They've made the best out of it, which is great to see, and I'd love to see more of that. But I don't know what I like to compete in an empty stadium, with maybe no one else in the race, or even only one other person in the race, one in lane 2 and one in lane 7 or something. I don't know. Would that be something that I would like to do? But I would definitely be open to it if it was a possibility. But no, I don't. I definitely wouldn't get the same feeling as an actual race in front of the crowds. It'd be just as well to go down to the track here in UL and bust out a time trial with Haley on the watch.
Yeah. Have you kind of psychologically almost written off this season, or do you still think, right, let's stay in enough shape that if there is a race in August or September, we'll be ready?
Kind of a little bit of both, really. Like, I have in my own head, I've kind of written it off, because rather than keeping my hopes up that there will be a season, so I have kind of on my own side of things, in my own head, I've kind of just said, right, that's the end of it. We're not going to be doing any more competitions this year. But if there are, like, I'm still ticking over with training. So if it came to it that there were a couple of competitions in September, I'd be willing to, or even maybe even earlier, but I don't think it's going to happen. I will be willing to come out and run a couple of races, but at the same time, I'd nearly be as happy with it being another Olympic year next year to just tip away with training now, keep fit and healthy, and then just go back into winter training at a normal time in September, rather than trying to, bust out some sort of a season. off of kind of haphazard training, and then run the risk of injury as well without consistent training. So yeah, I'll probably wait and see how it kind of pans out, but I'm not pinning my hopes on any competitions this season anyway.
Gotcha. And we won't stick with the coronavirus, but I'll make this the last question. Tokyo 2021, I suppose, as it's now been called, is even kind of being cast doubt on at the moment. Obviously dependent on probably the development of a vaccine, but there are suggestions maybe they'll even do that without crowds next year. Is that, like, for you, would that completely ruin the Olympic experience if it was done without crowds, or is that something you'd be like, right, it's better than nothing?
Like, if it came to it, like, that is definitely the best of a bad situation. I would much rather be doing it in front of a crowd, because I just think that that's part and parcel of the Olympics. Now, I know that you know, they'd have all the support back home, everyone would be watching it on TV and things like that. But to go out, you know, and like there's something really like exciting and kind of like that really gives me a big adrenaline rush on the day of a competition, as when you walk out on the track initially, there's whatever event is on before you, the crowd is going absolutely electric. There's noise, and there's just it's just, you can feel, you know, you kind of absorb that energy, and then you go out, set up your blocks, standing behind the blocks, then you get introduced, you get a big clap, and then it's like, right, everything goes quiet, and boom, then you're into the race. I just associate that with race day. So I think it would just be really difficult to kind of get excited on the day of a race without that kind of energy. But still, if it was to go ahead like that, I mean, I think 400 meter hurdles is one as well that is unique in that you have your own stride pattern, so you're kind of only really worrying about yourself anyway. And often when I come off the track after a race, I have no idea what I've done. I'm completely on autopilot, and it just takes over, and I'm not even thinking about everything else that's going on. So at the same time, it might even be a good thing, because there's less distractions. So that's the way I would try to look at it anyway, is try and take the silver lining if it did go ahead like that. But just have to wait and see how things pan out.
Yeah. And if we go back, I suppose, to your early years, because, you know, I suppose there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat, there's 1,000 ways to bring up sporting stars, but your parents brought up 2 Olympians, so obviously they're doing something right. But like, what approach did they take when you were either a kid or a teenager to your kind of first exposures to sport and your development in the sport?
They just forced let us eat, sleep, or meet our friends. They didn't do any of that. They were just encouraging towards us trying out loads of different sports when we were younger, so we did. Like, I tried out everything when I was younger that I could possibly try out. Gaelic games, so I tried out hurling, football, basketball. We learned how to swim, did soccer, athletics. We were quite active kids, and athletics was kind of the one that I stuck with. I started it when I was maybe 8 years old, and I enjoyed it more so for the social side of things. Like I was saying earlier, like what I'm missing from it now. And that was kind of what kept me going back training, was I made a lot of my good friends from athletics, and I used to enjoy going training mainly because of that. And it's even still, that's kind of what, you know, keeps me ticking over, really. So this is a little bit more of a struggle at the moment for me to keep training.
Did you show a talent for any other sport?
Not really, no. I didn't even show talent for athletics back then. I was not what I didn't capture the headlines. I was not fantastic. I visit a lot of schools, and the example I love giving is after Rio, you did a piece in the Irish Cathal, like back then, that I was, you know, an okay athlete, but nothing outstanding. So that was what they obviously thought of me back then, and that was obviously where I was. And thank God they didn't tell me, because it could have crushed my soul. But I still kept going. Anyway, but my dad, like, he kind of always saw the potential. So actually his quote was, my technique looked like I was trying to run through sand, but I had some sort of X factor there. I just didn't know it yet, that I had potential there that I just had to unleash. And it took a long time. It took maybe 10 years of training in the sport. When I actually made the move up to UL to train, I moved up to UL actually primarily for mechanical engineering. Athletics was still just a hobby. And I was kind of thinking, do I still want to do this athletic lark? You know, it takes a lot of discipline. I wasn't able to go out as often as I would have liked, but like what everyone else is doing, sensing that freedom from home. But my parents, again, like my mom in particular, said, look, give one more year. Just moved up. Training that she was doing in UL really suited her. And you know, she was making it to international level, and you know, she made it to the 2012 Olympics in London as well. So in my own head, I kind of made the decision that I was like, I'm at this 10 years now, and you know, I've got my fun out of it. I've knocked the crack out of it. I've moved away from all my friends down in Ferrybank, even though it's the sport for me anymore.
Did it when you went to college that time, and I suppose it's the crossroads every young athlete faces between social life and athletics life. Did it feel like you were kind of giving up the full college experience to focus on athletics, or did you you obviously found some sort of balance between them over the years?
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of this. Like, it was definitely a compromise. Say, if I was to look at it as regards being a fully social side of things as much as I could have, there was definitely a compromise. But at the same time, I still got my nights out now and again with all my housemates and my friends and my college mates as well. So I kind of tried to make the best of both worlds, but I still, you know, made it to training every day, didn't skip sessions, and made sure that it didn't impact on my training as much as possible. So like, I think a good balance is not a bad thing, especially if training starts to go badly, you know, to be able to say, right, I actually, you know, to have something else, you know, a distraction going on, or to be able to say that, okay, well, look, I got the balance. Okay, I didn't give up absolutely everything for sport, and like, now it's come to competition season and I have nothing to show for it. At least, you know, I was able to say, well, look, I got my college degree. I enjoyed my few nights out and whatever. So I definitely tried to strike the balance as much as I could. Yeah.
Gotcha. And like that year, you go from 56 to 50 point, I think, for 400 meter hurdles in the space of a year. And I think you almost tried to cast suspicion on yourself before in an interview by saying it was such a jump. But like, what changed that year? What did you do that year to make that huge jump? Because I suppose it's the one every 17, 18-year-old wants to make.
I think in particular, like, I had a very good base of speed and speed endurance coming from Ferrybank. But what I didn't have was, say, like, the technical side of things nailed down. I had no idea what a stride pattern was when I first moved to Haley's group, and we sat down with our first meeting, and she was like, "What's your stride pattern?" And I was like, "What's that?" In any mix of 15 to 17 or 18 strides in whatever race I was doing beforehand, whereas I was getting down to 13 strides for half the race, which was taking nothing out of me, getting me to 200 meters a lot quicker, and leaving me with a lot more left in the tank then towards the end of the race. So it's just been, rather than it being a 400 meter race with hurdles in the way, I actually was starting to think more like a 400 meter hurdler. So I think that was where the big drop came for me.
Okay, and then, like, obviously you run at the Europeans in 2014, but then I think it was 2015 where you started running the Diamond Leagues.
Yeah.
Those first Diamond League experiences, I'm guessing they must be huge for an athlete. Like, what was it like that time in Doha and the time a week or two later in Rome when you're fully on the big stage?
That was, like, even just thinking of it there now, like, thinking back to my very first one in Doha has given me, like, kind of a shiver up my spine and, like, goosebumps. But yeah, I'm getting goosebumps here. But no, like, it's to get to that level of competition, like, especially as an Irish athlete, where we don't really get too many Irish athletes getting to Diamond Leagues that often. So to actually get to one was a massive, massive deal for me, especially like in 2015. Like that year, I think what had sealed it for me was we had run an early race, but that was the year of the World Relay. So I'd run an early race in Florida on a training camp out there, and I'd run a low 49, or 49.3 or 49.4 or something like that. And I remember reading articles starting to be, they were being written up about me, and I was looking at my ranking in the world and in Europe and stuff, and I was really high up there. And I didn't really see this as a massive deal because I'd run way faster the year before. What I didn't understand was, your first race of the season isn't meant to be that quick. It was meant to kind of get faster as you go down. So that was how I got the invite for the Doha Diamond League. And it was just insane going out there and literally running against athletes that I had watched on the TV for so long, athletes that I'd idolized. I met Felix Sanchez in the warm-up area, and I was like fangirling over him, watching him run around. And then he came up and shook my hand and was like, "Oh, welcome to the big leagues, brother," and all this kind of stuff. So I was completely blown away by the whole experience. And then ended up going out, and I think I finished 3rd or 4th in that one. And sure, I didn't sleep a wink that night then with the excitement and the fact that my phone was buzzing all night, and I was buzzing all night. And then, yeah, it just, I kind of snowballed from there then to sort of, like you said, getting my invitation to Rome, where I think that was where did I break the national record out there in Rome? And that was 2015 was a big year for me in that respect. While I didn't run an extremely fast time, I had a consolidating year where I had a lot of quick times in big races. I had run in the World Champs and in the World University Games that year, so that was a really big year where I kind of made my mark, I think, on the world stage, and it was just a really cool year to look back on.
Yeah, and I know we're fast forwarding quite a bit here through your World Universities title and your first World Championships in Beijing, but we'll go straight to 2016 because you're
straight
going
to the
well
big
fish. You're going well indoors. You've run quick over 200, and then you get to March and April, and I'm assuming it's around then, is it? Your hip starts hurting.
Yeah. So I had an underlying condition with my hip, which was diagnosed as a labrum tear. So the cartilage in my hip was torn, and just causing irritation. And for weeks and weeks on end, probably 12 weeks altogether, 11 weeks, which would have brought us into May, which is prime time for competitions. I was completely, I was working alongside my physio Emma all along, just trying to get to the bottom of what it was.
For like 11 weeks on the last 3-4 month block before the Olympics, you can't train. So what can you do during those weeks? Or what were you doing?
I was doing a lot of aqua jogging, a lot of work on the elliptical, on the cross trainer, a huge amount of strength work, because I was able to, for some reason, whatever it was only actually running that was aggravating it. So we were able to do a huge amount of rehab in the gym, and we used the time wisely that way as well to strengthen up all around the hip, strengthen up all my rear chain, all my glutes, hamstrings, just get generally strong all over to make me a little bit more robust, so that when I did get back, it would hopefully mean that I wasn't going to get injured. I think it was May time then I was able to start training again on the track, and we'd finally cracked what the problem was with the hip, because I've only had very minor episodes since then.
Like, again, we're jumping forward here again, but you come back, you run the Europeans in Amsterdam, you're out in the semi-final. I think it's 50 point you run there. I think there's only 5 weeks to go to the Olympics at that point. And I think I remember meeting you at the airport, talking to you as you left for the Olympics. And I think it was maybe 3 weeks or so before your first race.
Yeah.
You were going to the holding camp in Uberlandia. And I think you said something like, I'm pretty much just happy to be getting on the plane, because, it was up in so much doubt. And I think a lot of us in our heads were like, right, he's dumped out in the first round. But then you finish second in your heat in 48.9, and then you obviously win your semi-final. So what changes, I suppose, in those last 2-3 weeks before Rio?
Yeah, like when it came to the point of actually getting to the point where I was like, okay, I'm able to run. Didn't have a great run out in Amsterdam. We put down probably three really good weeks, a good block of training. But even in my head, I was like, I'm literally, like you said there, like I said to you back then, I was genuinely happy just to be getting on the plane and being able to put my toe on the line. And the training camp in Uberlandia went really well. Like, you know, day on day. And as well, I think when training hasn't been going well, you really notice when things start to go well. And every day I was feeling little bits were starting to click, and things were coming right. And like the training program that Haley had put together was basically just, you know, a kind of a haphazard, well, not haphazard, but like it was a mix of everything to try and get me ready for a race, basically, for one of the biggest races of my life, which was no easy task, but she nailed it. And literally the very last session that I did, which was at the warm-up track in Rio, I just felt everything start to click. I felt the rhythm starting to come back, which, you know, it's a real turning point for anyone that can hurdle, or anyone that's a hurdler will know that the rhythm is so important. And I really did feel it start to click in that last session I did. So, and then, yeah, to go out in the first round and run, when I saw 48 came up on the clock. I think, yeah, it was 48. I couldn't believe it. So that was the start of it. Then I was like, right, I'm back in shape. Because I hadn't raced in ages then since that, or previously to that. So there was a lot of pressure riding on that heat, and sure, then I was just riding the wave. And I felt unstoppable then. Went into the semi-final and won the thing. And then, went into the final and just missed out on a medal. So I really was, it was definitely not expected, which made it even more sweet. There was no pressure on me. And I think I'll always run well when there's no pressure, or when I'm feeling like, you know, I'm in good shape. And that was just the absolute pinnacle of it, really.
Yeah, and like, you know, I don't think it's any disrespect to other sports to say that when it's an athletics medal at the Olympics in contention for, you know, we kind of tend to lose our minds a bit more. You won your Olympic semi-final in an Irish record, I think it was, and you're going in as a medal contender, and you've got like a day and a half, 2 days before the final. Were you aware in that time of what exactly the hysteria that was starting to happen, both in Irish athletics and the Irish public in general back home?
Do you know what? I was getting a sense of it, but I wasn't getting the full Monty as such, because I was getting a certain amount of it coming through to my phone from Twitter and from Instagram, and messages coming through, and videos of people's offices, and videos of places just, you know, getting ready with big screens. I was like, this is absolutely outrageous. But like, I definitely didn't feel the full effect of it until I got home, and I realized, I was like, okay, this is not, things are never going to be the same again, where I was being recognized going to the shops, and being congratulated by complete strangers, which was, it was really cool. But yeah, it was mad. I didn't fully understand how big of a deal it was until a long time afterwards.
And I remember it was a morning final, and it was roasting hot, and you walk out for your final, and you look like you're walking out for a heat at nationals almost. You're waving to the Irish fans in the stands, and you're smiling and jumping around. Were you genuinely not nervous before that Olympic final, or were you just hiding it very well?
Do you know what? I'll always have a mix of excitement and nerves. And on that day in particular, I felt like I was in bonus territory, almost in enemy territory, like I didn't belong there. And the fact that I'd snuck in there was part of the excitement of it all. Because my training really just was not, you know, it didn't tee me up for the races that I was running. Well, it obviously did, but the fact that I went out there with absolutely no pressure, and going into the final, which was bonus territory, I was completely, you know, nerves were probably 2%, and I was 98% excited just to go out there and race. And even if we forget about the Olympics, any championships that I've been at, Europeans last year included, or European juniors, or any of the majors, especially where I've made it to a final, getting to the final is often the most difficult part. And once you get there, you know, it's just about literally going out and replicating what you've done in the last, say, 2 days, and just going out and doing it faster, you know. So it's almost just like it's on repeat. You know, you get up at probably the same time if you have an evening race. you eat the same kind of things, you do the same thing you did for the day, you go, you warm up, you start to get used to the call room, you start to get used to the warm-up track, you have a full routine, and you just go out and replicate it. So I know that, you know, all of those unknowns, the hard work is done, so I go out there then and just try and replicate what I've done, and enjoy it. So yeah, that's definitely, I definitely wasn't trying to hide any nerves that day anyway.
And like Rio, I suppose certain nights, certain events, it was kind of a hit and miss games for many. Sometimes stands were full, sometimes they weren't. I know Rob Heffernan kind of said it didn't really feel like an Olympics because where the racewalk was, but it was your first Olympics, and obviously it seemed an incredible experience. But away from the track even, how was the whole experience, being in the village, all that?
Oh, like, because it was my first one, I have nothing to compare it to. It was really, really cool. Like, that's the only way. That's when I got back, even trying to explain it to my friends, that was the one word I used, was it was just really cool experience. And like, I know, like, Rob is a veteran at the Olympics at this stage, and he did say, you know, it was probably one of the you know, it wasn't very well organized. There was the smallest amount of crowds he'd seen. But for me, like, I was completely blown away by it all, just how big of a deal and how big of an event this really was, and the fact that I was a part of it, you know, that was really cool and really kind of humbling, and it took a long time to come down off that high, that's for sure.
And what exactly happened in the dining hall with Caroline Wozniacki? We've heard that story, bits of that story.
Yeah, of course you'd bring this one up. Yeah, I am not a sports fanatic at all. I don't really follow sports. And we were sitting in the dining hall, and this tall, blonde Danish girl comes up to the table, and myself and Ray Flynn and Alex Wright were sitting down having lunch, and just people watching. We'd probably finished lunch for half an hour already at this stage. And everyone had, you know, pin badges. So we had like a Team Ireland pin badge, and like, one of the kind of traditions, obviously, at games or even at World University Championships or any of the big championships like that, is you trade pin badges, and, you know, you try and collect them all as such. And it was her last day in the village, so she was like, oh, Team Ireland had only just arrived. And she came up and she's like, oh, I don't have a Team Ireland pin badge, would you mind swapping? And none of us had any. So we were like, oh, like, Ray, and we were all kind of messing then. We're like, oh, sure, we'll go up and get one there, or sure, give us your number there and we'll ring you later, and we can give you a badge then or whatever. And she's like, oh, no, it's okay. Don't worry about it, but good luck. And we're like, oh, how did you get on yourself? Have you competed yet? And she's like, oh, I got knocked out. I have to head home now tomorrow for the Open. And I had no idea who she was. I had no idea what she was talking about. Myself and Ray were completely oblivious, and Alex was staying very quiet. He knew exactly who it was, and said nothing. And so she went off anyway, and she came back a couple of minutes later, and you know, I don't know, I'm not sure, I can't exactly remember how it came about that she came back, but she was just chatting again for a while. And Ray said, oh, go on, sure, give one of the lads your number there. And she said, oh no, I dated a Northern Irish guy before and it didn't work out. So we were like, all right, fair enough, yeah, no worries, well, safe flight home or whatever. And then when she toddled off, then Alex was like, lads, you surely know who that was? And we were like, no idea. Caroline Wozniacki. And I was still like, who's Caroline Wozniacki? So you have to bring her profile up on Twitter and show me, 1.2 million followers, that she was a tennis player, and an extremely good, famous tennis player at that.
Incredible stuff. And
yeah, mental.
Yeah, so like, I suppose fast forward a bit again, you know, you like definitely the best run of your career at that time, one of the best like all-time Irish Olympic performances in my book, like, but I guess in the years after, the one thing that's missing from your career is like, you know, a major championships medal. Obviously you have the World Universities, but like, I suppose to get into the category alongside like your peers like Ciara McGee and Mark English, Fanula, all them, you need that medal, I suppose, which you at that point didn't have. Did that weigh on you at all, kind of heading into that like 2017, 2018 season?
No, it didn't really. Like, I think it did in 2017. It did put a lot of pressure on me. It bumped up my profile a lot. A lot more people were watching what I was doing. A lot more people were interested in what I was doing, which is fantastic. Because like, for me, it's funny, I'd still be training even without the interest, even without the big races. I'd still be doing the same thing and doing a lap of a track. But for people to get so much excitement and interest out of that it still blows my mind, it's just really cool. But I think it did put a lot of pressure then on in 2017 to perform well. But like, I think training, we just said, look, we have a good regime working now. We kind of had figured a good system working. With everything was, it was just literally pick up from where we left off after my break and just train away as normal. We didn't need to try anything new, just keep ticking away. What we were doing was kind of working. But then in London at the World Champs, I obviously picked up I still didn't feel myself in the heats. Picked up a bit of a stomach bug, which turned out then to be that norovirus, or the winter vomiting bug that was going around, and didn't get to run the semi-final. So that was a bit of a dodgy year that year, unfortunately. But I definitely, like, going back to your original question, it definitely didn't weigh on me that I didn't have a medal. Like, 2016 was probably is still one of the, if not the highlight of my career. And I'm in no way bitter for not having, pushed on that little 0.05 of a second or anything like that. So, it's all good.
Gotcha. And like, one of the things you always seem to have as well, Derval had it, is that ability when you're in a final to just find an extra gear that wasn't there all year. Like that European medal you won in Berlin, I think you hadn't broken 49 or maybe barely crept under all year, and then you run 48.3 once you're in a final. Yeah. Is there anything you do differently, or is it just that when the stakes are so much higher, you kind of are able to just access a higher level of performance?
I am much more motivated when it comes to a majors. That's what I live for, are the major championships. I love getting to all the big races, like the Diamond Leagues or any of those races where I'm getting to race against the top guys in the field. But there's nothing like a championships whereby anything can happen to anybody in rounds. And I love it. And what I love about the championships is that the whole country gets behind it, and especially if you're doing well. And that momentum I thrive on as well. I love that people get such a kick off of that. And then something else then, these are all kind of tying into why I run so well, or why I tend to run well at championships, is that I love the repetition. Like, I'm definitely, like, while I'm not a particularly quick learner in that respect. I don't learn from one instance of seeing and doing. I will learn, from repetition in anything I do, and I need to do it a couple of times to, even when I was studying for my exams, if I was trying to learn an essay, I'd write it out 5 times. That was the only way I could literally get it into my head. So like, you go out, you experience the call room, you experience the track, you experience all of that on the first day. That's the most nerve-wracking day for me, is the heats. Then the semi-final, if you get through to it, same again. You go out, you rinse, you repeat, do it again. And every time I'm finished the race, I'll chat to Hayley and Drew, and I'll say, right, where can I pick up? You can really start to fine tune things then. And obviously as well, I'll have been training and trying to peak for this championships as well. So I obviously feel in fantastic shape. And then going into the final, then the hard work is done. There's nothing that I can do on that day to run any fast. The training is done. I've gotten myself in a good position by getting to a final, and then it's just about going out and just literally trying to run as fast as I can. And I think while the races from the previous days have been fresh in my head, I'm going in knowing exactly what I need to do to try and optimize the race and try and make it as efficient and fast as possible. I kind of know exactly what shape I'm in because I ran a really good 300 meters yesterday, say, or 2 days previous. I actually needed to, kind of open up the taps a little bit earlier. I can do that. So I'll say, right, at hurdle 7, I'll start to really focus on the home straight rather than only focusing on the home straight. So I think they all kind of really tie into it. It's that real repetition of just going out and doing the same thing day in, for 3 days in a row that I really build off of. And then when I'm running well, there's huge excitement, and you almost start to feel unstoppable at that stage, which is a really good place to be in when you're going into a final of a major championships.
Where do you stand on sports psychology? Is it something you've used over the years, or have you dabbled in it much?
I haven't really, and like Jesse is a sports psychologist, so I probably should be making better use of it. But no, I haven't really over the past couple of years actually delved into it. But I definitely, especially when I was injured, I think I definitely could have done with one. But I just try and take quite a balanced, measured approach. Like I would be quite logical in a lot of things. I try not to let my emotions get the better of me. Obviously, sometimes they do, but I often try not to, and I always try and see the silver lining from any situation. So as best as I can. But it is definitely like an avenue that I haven't yet tapped into, which I would like to.
Gotcha. And we have a good few questions coming in here. So just before we get to the listeners, I suppose, questions, I'll just fire a few quick fire ones at you that I had jotted down here. Favorite Diamond League to race in?
Favorite Diamond League, I think Doha was pretty special because it was my first one, and they really pulled out all the stops. There was no expense spared in Doha anyway, that's for sure.
Excellent. Favorite pre-race meal?
Favorite, probably just something plain like chicken and pasta.
Good and simple. Favorite post-race meal?
Post-race meal, pizza or something like that. After, if it's a reward, if I'm allowed to have a reward, a pizza is not bad, or a burger.
Excellent. Now, I'm sure due to sponsors and everything else, your favorite pre-race drink is Red Bull, I'm assuming, correct?
Oh, of course, yeah. Gets the energy, gets in there.
Major championships, medal in the back pocket, and you're heading to an Irish bar. What's your call at the bar? What's your favorite drink?
Oh, at the bar, a pint of Guinness.
Good
and plain and simple.
Patriotic. If you could live and train with one of professional athlete rivals, who would it be?
Probably Carsten Warholm. He'd probably be the easiest to get along with. He's good crack, doesn't take himself too seriously, kind of along the lines of an Irish mentality, and also trains really damn hard. So yeah, I think I wouldn't mind slotting in there.
Gotcha. Favorite film?
Anchorman.
Excellent. Favorite musician or singer or band?
Fatboy Slim.
Excellent. Yeah. What's the best bit of advice you've ever been given?
From my mum. Worry. Like I used to be, especially when I was younger, I was a lot worse. I was a really bad worrier. And she used to just tell me, and especially when I was injured, she just reiterated it, was only worry about what I have control over and don't worry about anything else, because I have no control or power over those. So there is no point in worrying or wasting energy on any of that. And just focus on what you can do to get yourself out of whatever situation it is you're in.
Gotcha. What's the one bit of advice, I suppose, if you could give one bit of advice to young athletes?
How, like, to young athletes, say, kind of in their teens?
Yeah, like 15, 16-year-olds, someone like that. If you could go back even to your younger self, what would you tell them?
Just to stick with it. Keep training hard. And there is a point where, like for me anyway, I wasn't the most talented, but I was willing to work hard. And it was that where my talent and hard work eventually met when I was only about 18. So it can take a long time for that talent to really show through. So I think stick with it, and the most important thing is to, whatever you're doing, whatever sport it is, if it's athletics, enjoy it, and enjoy racing, enjoy the process of training. Like, I still enjoy training. I enjoy the buzz that I get off of training, and I think that's probably the key thing for me, is just to enjoy it, have fun.
Excellent. And we'll bounce over to some of the viewers' questions. Pat has asked, is the knowledge that performance-enhancing drugs are likely a factor in some competitors' performance? Do you find that frustrating or discouraging at all?
No. No, again, it's one of those things that I just don't waste my energy on or my thoughts on. Like, yeah, for sure, sometimes it does, you know, when you see a lot of athletes, or you see athletes being pulled up for drugs, it is disheartening. But I have a bit of a short memory as well, so I just forget about it quite quickly and then go training or go about my daily business, and it doesn't really affect me. You know, it's not something I dwell on, that's for sure.
And on a side note, like, I suppose to that, there was a few athletes were banned for whereabouts in America, failures today, a couple of American female sprinters. Like, do you still have to do all that sort of stuff at the moment, even with the pandemic, fill in your whereabouts? And I guess, have you been tested at all in the last couple of months?
No, I haven't been tested in the last, say, 2 months or so, which is fair enough. But I think that's why they're negating any competitions that are done between now and next season. They're just not counting towards any points or rankings or anything like that. So I think it's just to discourage people from wanting to compete and wanting to take advantage of the fact that social distancing, you're not, someone who's taking your blood in a drug test is not going to be able to keep 2 meters from you. So yeah, I think it's like, I'm still filling out my whereabouts and everything, but I haven't been tested in the last 2 months or so since this all kind of kicked off.
Cool. Question from I think this is Jeremy Lyons. iPhone is the name. What do you think of the Jerry Kiernan theory that you don't run well in odd years, and do you think you can break the odd year Jerry Kiernan jinx in 2021?
Do you know what? My mum said that as well, that I seem to run well in consecutive years and up and down years. I would like to try and break that curse. Although, do we even count this as a year or as a season? Because I haven't been able to race. So, you know, I'll have to wait and see what way the stars align.
Excellent. Deirdre has asked, I know we've kind of had a version of this question already, but what's your favorite venue for competing?
I actually love competing in Morton at the Nationals. Yeah, like for a home meet, like I love competing in front of an Irish crowd in particular. So I do actually, especially on a sunny day or a sunny evening at Morton Games, I like running there. Abroad, I think Berlin is probably one of my favorite tracks so far. It was one of the ones that I really can remember kind of walking out on the track, you know, the day before when we did a bit of a recce and just walked around the track and took in the surroundings and stuff. That was one of the ones that really took my breath away as regards the stadium. And obviously I have fond memories there as well, so I'm going to be biased.
Absolutely. Kenneth Kiernan has asked, what's your advice for young athletes who are trying to decide between staying at home for college or pursuing the NCAA system?
I suppose because I haven't experienced the other side of things, like I actually wasn't good enough back when it came to scholarships to get a scholarship. I did get offered one a year after, like when I was going to second year in college, but I had only just found what was working for me, so I wasn't going to change it. But I think in Ireland we have some fantastic coaches, and I think sometimes, like, this is only my opinion, that sometimes we're human. The grass is always going to seem greener. Like there's no magic potion that's going to make you run faster. You know, if you go across to the USA, a lot of the times they're doing the same sort of stuff that we're doing here, training wise. Sure, the colleges have fantastic facilities, but that isn't to say that some of our colleges here don't have great facilities, because they do. Just the weather might be the only obvious bonus that I could see. But because I trained in Ireland, you know, other than training camps outside of the country, I've based all my training here and in UL. I can safely say that it's definitely possible to get to the higher level from home. So, but if going further afield is something that an athlete wanted to do, and that was what was going to really keep them in the sport and keep them motivated, I think why not? You know, why not try it? But it's kind of real personal preference.
Were you ever tempted to go? Like, I'm assuming you must have had the option, I suppose, when you started, like when you were in that European junior final. I'm assuming you had those doors open to you. But Was it ever a true consideration?
I can tell you exactly where and when it happened that I got my first invitation to an American college. Was in the airport in Tallinn. There was an American college scout basically, and I went into the bathroom, was standing at the urinals, doing my business, and he stood next to me and said, "Thomas Barr, how would you like to come to," I can't even remember the name of the college, "would you like to come to this college and represent us? You'll be on a top class scholarship." And first of all, I was taken completely aback because I was accosted in the jacks. But then I was also like, nah, what I'm doing at home is working for me. Why am I, if it's not broken, why am I going to try and fix it? So I stuck with my guns and put all my eggs into Haley and Drew's basket.
Excellent. And just a word on Haley and Drew, because obviously they've been the two who've, brought you to the very top. Like, how are they to work with, over the years? How valuable have they been?
Oh, extremely valuable. Like, I mean, to be, I wouldn't be in the position that I'm in today without their coaching. So, and I think as well, like they've done a good job of even just keeping a really good training group. Like they're very big on the group itself. Which is good. Like, I mean, because we have every level in the squad, and that's something that I really enjoy, is the fact that we have a really good squad, a really good group there, and they've really made sure that over the years they've built that kind of squad mentality. They kind of, even at the moment, they're on to us to say, make sure we're texting each other and keeping in contact and making sure that everyone is all right, and trying to keep motivation levels up. So. On that side of things, as well as their wealth of knowledge in coaching, has been invaluable, you could say. Yeah. So no, I wouldn't change it. I'm with them nearly 10 years, and I wouldn't change it at all. I wouldn't change anything that we've been doing.